Hi guys, right, so we're here with obviously a very different video from what you're normally used to, but we saw the film and we've just got so much shit that we want to talk about in regards to it. Now, before you just immediately disregard what we're saying and dislike the video, at least hear us out. Now, when people say, oh, you need to enjoy Star Wars, you need to just shut off your brain and enjoy it, that's literally just you making excuses for shitty writing. I think that it's fine to go in looking at things critically, and especially when it's Star Wars, when it's a series that's so beloved to so many people, I think that it's stupid to not go in critically and just blindly like it like everybody seems to be doing. The amount of people that I've seen that say that it was amazing, and yet you bring up the points that we have and they all agree with you. So we think it's an unbelievably mediocre film and it has some crazy flaws with it. So we really think that here's out what we've got to say, and then you can try and see if you can understand where we're coming from anyway. I think that when it comes to films, it's completely justified to hold up Star Wars in the same vein as any other good film. Things like The Shawshank Redemption or Prestige or Pulp Fiction, all really good films, are really well written with great characters, great cinematography. That's the kind of thing that any film should really be striving for. Although it's different genres, I'm talking about just, general quality here. So we'll get into our points we've got three different things. We're going to talk about the positives first, then we'll talk about the main objective points that we can think of, things that aren't subjective, such as like, well, we don't know, like, I didn't like his acting, or I didn't like this niggly thing, things that are like genuinely down to the writing of the film, and then we'll move on to the more subjective points that we've got that we didn't like. So again, here's out, but hopefully we want to actually try and convince you otherwise, because we don't think...
Don't even need to convince you, just need to tell you why we think it is a great film.
And I don't think things should just get a pass just because it's Star Wars.
No, because look what fucking happened with Battlefront.
Nostalgia is not something that is part of our emotions towards this. We're not the biggest fans of Star Wars, so we're not being blinded by nostalgia. We're going in here as decent fans of the Star Wars universe, and
I liked the movies.
Being movie fans.
I liked the original trilogies. I agree that the prequels were worse, and I just didn't like this one either.
Yeah.
Nostalgia's not the thing that's like grinding us here.
Yeah.
It's just
because nostalgia.
It's just the rest of it.
Nostalgia can work two ways here. You're either blinded by nostalgia, so you're just going to love it for it being Star Wars, or you're blinded by nostalgia for the original films, and anything that isn't the original films is not going to cut it. That is straight up not the case for us, because even we can appreciate the good things that the prequels at least tried to do. We are under the impression that the prequels were a good story told horribly badly. However, this is just a completely recycled story from the original trilogy.
A New Hope. It's A New Hope too.
Okay, so
Second Hope. Or Newer Hope.
Something we should make before the last point is any one or a few of these things isn't an issue. You can look past some of these things, but when you're bombarded with so many of these things that aren't even like you need to really think about it, like maybe the Eagles for Lord of the Rings, where you go, oh wait, why couldn't they have just flew the Eagles, and you don't realise until way after the film. As these things are happening, we're like, wait, no, this is really illogical and doesn't make sense. So if so many of these things are coming up in the film, and a lot of other people have found these kind of things, surely that is an indication that the film does have genuine problems. So, right, okay, we'll move on to the positives. It was great to see, sets being used again for films.
Yeah.
None
of this Lucas CGI shit.
Yeah. Back to the roots. Although obviously there was a bunch of CGI used in it, which is inescapable nowadays. The CGI was at the very least decent. It was good spectacle. The action scenes were pretty decent. The audio was good as well. I feel personally that the music wasn't as good as the originals or even the prequels. It kind of didn't quite hit the mark. The first 30 minutes of the film, up until Han Solo and Chewbacca captured Rey and Finn, up until that point, the film was pretty decent. I was like, I'm kind of getting into this. I really liked Finn's whole, like she's scavenging and stuff. The sets were really nice, or it's probably not sets, but
Rey, you mean?
So I mean that was cool. It had a lot of little parts that reminded me of the original films, like with her when she's like zooming across the open plains.
I really liked the wrecked Star Destroyer as well.
That was really cool.
That was a really nice scene. That was good.
And it was nice to just see life on Jakku and how that was. The nods back to the earlier films I enjoyed. We'll get to that more specifically. But, also, this is something that is more subjective, but it is a positive for us. So obviously the subjective things were the negative things, so this is the positive that we found. We think that Kylo Ren was a really good character.
It's probably the best part about the film.
Yeah, now a lot of people are complaining about Kylo Ren, about him being a pissy bitch and you didn't like him or whatever. However, when you think about this like sort of logically, Kylo Ren at the very least got an emotional reaction out of you in that sense. you actually, like, at least you're probably not supposed to enjoy or like or sympathise with the antagonist. Although, you know, a lot of things do try and make you sympathise with the bad guy. You're not really supposed to, at least I don't think so. And I felt that Kylo Ren was a lot more of a deeper character. He did have a lot of emotion behind his character, and instead of trying to stay away from the dark side, he's trying to stay away from the light side, which is a unique take that we've not seen in any of the films.
Yeah, usually they're just completely like succumbed to the dark side and like they just ignore the light side. He's actually running from the light side as best he can anyway. He is running from it.
Now, our opinion on Kylo Ren is subject to change in the sense that they could change his or we could learn more about his backstory that could be like, you know, his reason for going to the dark side might just be really shit. Like, I just want to be Darth Vader. But if he actually has more reasons behind it, what we know of his backstory, I enjoy, and I think Kylo Ren is a good character. So that's kind of really the only positives we've got. Okay, it was kind of cool seeing Han Solo and shit back again, but
yeah, like it pulled some nostalgic moments, of course. But it's overall though, we were still kind of like bitter at the end of it.
Right, so now we'll hit with part 2 of this video, and that is just the
what
problems.
we think are the objective problems in the movie. Anyway,
trying to be as critical as possible and just look at this specific writing. Okay, so the first thing,
bad writing is abundant in this film. There's a lot of it.
Yeah. So right, why the fuck was there a third Death Star? Now this is the
most impractical of Death Stars as well, by the way.
Now this is part of another thing that we're going to mention, but why was making a bigger Death Star necessary at all? Why did it have to kill 5 planets at once and be part of a huge planet, as opposed to just make a third normal Death Star, maybe protect it better? Because does it really matter if you're blowing up 5 planets at once?
Or, instead of wasting all that time turning a planet into a Death Star, you could have just made more than one Death Star.
Oh yeah, that as well. Now, another thing is, it has to absorb a sun. Now, this is the most fucking illogical thing.
Yeah. This is the most ridiculous thing about it. We will absorb the sun, thus killing everything in this little system, killing everything immediately. What do you do after you... How many suns are in the fucking system?
Yeah, does the thing have propulsion? It didn't seem to, it was just a big planet.
How does it have propulsion? How does gravity work while it's propelling itself through the black?
Yeah, and here's another thing. So when you absorb the sun, do you just go floating off into space then? Now, before anyone says, oh, it's meant to be sci-fi or it's fantasy or whatever, that doesn't excuse stupidly illogical writing.
Yeah.
I can't... Right, if you're going with sci-fi, things should at least make sense, because science, surely... And this, I just can't get into that idea. It's just so unbelievably impractical and illogical. It makes no sense, even for intimidation purposes.
What to believe that they could build something that could harness an entire sun?
Yeah.
But yeah, the sun dies, and then what?
Yeah, the first Death Star was a fine concept, you know, because it was like the ultimate weapon, Palpatine's ultimate lust for power.
Yeah.
But this is just... It's just a recycled idea, which again, we're going to get to.
Except they somehow made it worse, even though they copied it.
Yeah, not only that, it died in near enough the exact same way as well. Captain Phasma was a huge issue for us. She was a criminally underused character, and for 2 reasons. So she was shown in all the trailers to be this fucking badass, high-ranking official in the First Order, and then she just goes and does a Boba Fett, and nothing happens.
Put the shields there, okay. They didn't even get to finish asking her. She was like, fine. Shield, yeah, you mean you didn't know about the shields? Hold on, I'll put them down for you. She's, what the fuck? She's one of the high-ranking officials there. And she was in the film for all of about what? She was in the film as a fucking background prop for about 30 seconds, and then she had that wee 2-minute camera moment where she pulled the shields down, and then she was never to be seen again.
Yeah, now not only that was she shown to be a badass in the trailers, or at least implied to be, being a high-ranking official, you'd logically think she'd put up some kind of a fight, or just be like, look, kill me, it's either I die or you're not getting the shields. Do you know
it's either a case of you kill me and then it's either a case of if I do that, Kylo Ren's gonna kill me and he'll use his mad brain fart force power thing, and I'll just get shot. I think I'd rather get shot, just fuck it.
Here's another thing. The fight between Finn and that stormtrooper with the shock baton thing.
Why not Captain Phasma?
Yeah, it would have been the perfect opportunity to use her as a character, and they just didn't. Instead, you got this completely pointless fight because it was just all the stormtroopers, and suddenly there's one stormtrooper that just so happens to be there that can have a fight with a lightsaber. I mean, it felt really out of place because there was no fucking need for it. It was purely for spectacle when they could have used it Could have
I didn't
used
even
Phasma.
like that scene, by the way, because he was spending half the time. How is that even a practical weapon?
Fantasy or not, like, I should at least be able to be invested in the ideas
Yeah.
that are being presented.
That,
So, the third point is the amount of huge, unbelievable coincidences in this film, and it just...
scientifically incalculable, the
Yeah.
odds of half the shit in this film happening.
Poe just so happens to send BB-8 away, who just so happens to find Rey. Finn finds BB-8 and Rey, they both find... Specifically the Millennium Falcon, that was the only ship that they could take. That allows them to get to the Resistance through Han Solo. This kind of writing is really... It's quite lazy and just anime tier, really. R2 waking up just at the right time, just at the right time, before Rey can finish Kylo Ren. Like, Gorge splits them in two, which is just Deus Ex Machina.
See, here's the thing about that Gods that really got me. If the fight would have continued after that Gods breaking, okay then, it was a nice, like, cut in the action, it was a cool scene to throw in there, okay, but it stopped the fight. Fuck off.
I know.
You guys are finished fighting now, says the script. I just think it's not very good when you are going to throw something in like a fucking act of God to stop something from happening. The same way it's not good that you're going to throw in ridiculous odds of things and people meeting across what is an immeasurable amount of distance and time and all that. You're making all these pieces fall together.
And just because it's Star Wars does not, again, give it automatic pass.
Yeah, it doesn't get a pass because Disney paid enough money for it.
Now, right, so here's another thing that really fucking bugged us, is Luke's lightsaber in the film, right? Literally, how the fuck did it get there? His arm got cut off in Bespin, it fell down the big fucking thing into nothingness, and somehow they have it after so many years. What happened? Did it fall in the ocean, and then somebody fished it up and then punted it on space eBay or something?
A big magnet.
That's
a big magnet. But then when they ask her, how do you have that? I'll tell you that another time. That's basically them going, we have no fucking idea.
It's an unbelievable cop-out.
Come on.
Because they needed a lightsaber to be there. Because apparently maybe the technology for lightsabers was lost or something, but they needed a lightsaber for someone to have one. Rey as a character, now something that we will say is that we did enjoy most of the characters, although they were fairly one-dimensional in some senses and a bit archetypical. Their personalities and the acting was enjoyable and we liked them. However, the writing for Rey is the definition of a Mary Sue character. Like I said, her backstory and personality are fine, but that's a subjective thing. But the fact that she can do everything is just pretty cheap writing. She's never in any real danger. She can fly the Millennium Falcon. She can fix it. She can speak to BB-8 and Chewbacca despite it's just gruntings and beeps. She can use
it's not just BB-8. It's any droid.
She can use the Force to beat Kylo 1v1 first time. All this just removes any tension from the film involving her. And reduced Finn essentially to a fucking toilet attendant. So why not have Finn's character be an engineer type character? That way he could have fixed the Millennium Falcon, and that way he could have then had actual reasoning for knowing the weak points in the new Death Star.
Yeah, and it would actually give him a role in the story other than I'm the comic relief guy, because that's all he really was.
So Rey's latent Force abilities are so unbelievable bullshit, and that is literally the definition of Deus Ex Machina. I can accept that her latent Force abilities would have made it incredibly difficult for her to have her mind read by Kylo Ren. So I'm like, when that bit was happening, I'm like, oh, okay, so she does have a sort of Force.
Yeah, that was fine. That's just a case of it's strong with her.
Yeah,
she can deal with the strength of Kylo's. Okay, I'll let that pass.
Like, Force of will or whatever.
But
her just using a Jedi mind trick out of fucking nowhere when 10 minutes before
manifesting
the film,
it. Yeah. She's never even heard of it.
10 minutes before in the film, she's just learned that the Force is real. That's all she knows about it.
I know, but you will open these cuffs and leave the room. Okay, where the fuck did you pull that?
Yeah, so she's never seen anyone do it. She doesn't even know that kind of thing exists. She's doing stuff that is taking other Jedi in every other film years to do. She's doing more stuff than it took him 3 films to be able to learn. And she's just doing it from just knowing that the Force exists.
She's doing it because the script says she's doing
There's
it.
plenty of people in the prequels that know the Force is a thing because the Jedi fucking base is in Coruscant. So why is everybody not using the Force if they just know that it exists?
I know. If I believe hard enough, it will happen. No, it's because the script needs it to happen and there's no reason it can happen.
Again, this would have been a great time that Finn could have saved her. I think it would have been nice if Finn was there as a sort of backing thing towards Rey, as Rey's eventual, she's she has the potential to be more powerful, but you know, at the beginning she's
Finn's still a necessary part of the film. At this point, Finn is completely unnecessary.
Yeah, like you could actually take him out of the film and rewrite some of the things a little bit, and he genuinely doesn't even need to be there.
I mean, that's
which
just
is
the
a
first
shame.
film. He might play more roles than the others. Obviously, he might do that. We're not leaving that out of the question. But this one in particular, he wasn't necessary in any way. The only thing he done was free Bo.
And I feel that, you know, you could have written that in a way where there was another way that Poe escaped somehow.
Yeah, he could have been an engineer, and that's how they could have got the TIE fighter off the railings.
Engineer.
I mean, it's just, if he was an engineer, the story makes more sense in general.
Yeah, it does.
Just one little change, but no, he's a fucking toilet attendant.
So that was all built up just for that one joke, and it super invalidates him as a not just bumbling idiot of a character.
He's pointless now. There's no reason.
Now, if anybody is trying to use their head canon in order to justify Rey's abilities and how she can just suddenly use a lightsaber, 1v1 Kylo, who's actually trained in a lightsaber.
Trained by Luke, by the way, and now is a Sith, and is obviously being trained by a Lord of some kind, because they always come in twos.
Now, if anyone says anything about how, he was being shot or whatever, if he was that injured, he just would have not been able to do anything. Sure, make it visibly harder for him, as if they can have maybe a slightly more even fight because he's injured, but there is no way she should have won that.
Even Finn put up a fight against him.
Exactly. Again, headcanon is not an excuse for bad writing. These things should either be addressed or just not be in the film at all, because it just creates plot holes and it makes it really difficult to become invested in the film if you actually have some semblance of quality control in your own head.
Okay, it feels like bad fan fiction.
I genuinely felt that it did feel like fan fiction to me. Now, with it's Han Solo's son kind of thing, it just felt fan fictiony because you've already done the someone is somebody's son thing. Yeah. In fact, here's something that we'd like to mention on regards for that whole thing. It should have been, they could have had it that Han's no Kylo, I'm your father. Obviously Kylo knows that, but it could have been a way of introducing it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been cheap as fuck, but it would have been... Kylo takes his helmet off as soon as he's asked, right? And I think that it should have led up to some kind of tension where at that point in the film you find out that Kylo's...
Because the face, the reveal is meant to be a big thing. It's meant to be a spectacle, but it was just, remove your helmet.
Yeah, so...
Hi, I'm an actor.
Exactly. So, I mean, we felt that a lot of these things should have also been handled just a little bit better. Now, so, our last point before we get to the really subjective stuff is the recycled ideas that this film is comprised of. You have R2-D2 2, you have Tatooine 2, you have Endor 2, Hoth 2, Cantina 2, Death Star 3, X-Wing through the trough scene, Darth Vader 2. You have all these things that are basically just taken from the original trilogy and mostly A New Hope.
Yeah, they basically remade A New Hope for about half the movie is just A New Hope again.
Yeah.
It actually genuinely is. And that's not exactly something I wanted to see again.
Exactly.
You know? I watched that fucking 20 years ago.
And it was done better.
And it was done better. That's the thing. They had nods to the other films, and we're okay with that. We're okay with them going like Finn finding Luke's little training droid. We're okay with shit like that.
Tied the universe together nicely.
Yes,
which is all it needed.
Then there is just straight up plagiarism of the other film.
Yeah,
which is
now the plot. Here's the thing though. Although the film itself has no unique aspects to itself, which then makes you go, where's the big thing that lets this film stand by itself when all of its main plot points are just recycled from the other films? Yeah. It's just, you take this character, you switch the relationships and the characters about, but it's still essentially the same thing. So it's a shame to have the film not really be able to stand up on its own two legs that way. So next we'll get to the subjective things. And
these are smaller points, obviously. Yeah. But these are things that that really just didn't rub with us well personally, as opposed to a glaring issue with the plot, like what the fuck happens with the planet after it absorbs the sun and shit like that.
Yeah.
This is personal stuff, so just comedy.
Yeah.
It's Disney's Star Wars, quite literally. Emphasis on the Disney part is Disney's Star Wars. It's funny looks, it's witty comments, it's really stupid back chat, and it just doesn't... okay, it's not the original films, but even then, it just doesn't feel right in that sort of film. Not the way they used it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same. I know a lot of other people do feel the same about this, but again, this is really subjective. And the thing is, it's not that the comedy wasn't funny, it's just it left a weird taste in my mouth. And the only time that I did think the comedy did work was C-3PO's entrance. That felt very relevant to his character.
Yeah. That's his character. That's what he's always been in all of them. He's always been the sort of comic relief droid, I guess. Yeah. But it's this time they tried to make everybody a little bit of the comic relief, and it didn't suit.
Now here's another thing. Why was R2-D2 sleeping all it seems to me is that he had to be sleeping, that way all the stuff could happen and they didn't just go straight to find Luke Skywalker.
Oh, I forgot about one. I did forget one. The, it only takes 10 minutes or something to charge the cannon. How many fucking 10 minutes? They were there for an hour. They were fighting Death Star 3 for an hour while it was absorbing the planet and charging the gun. 10 minutes they said it'd take.
So there's another thing.
It's like when you phone a delivery. Ah, it's just out the door. Half an hour later, is it? Aye. To fucking drive to Tatooine and back.
Here's another thing. The lightsaber calling to her that felt really out of place because we've never, although these things might have happened in the expanded universe.
Yeah.
That I still think that not so many people are investing in the expanded universe enough that this felt super out of place in terms of all the other stuff that we've seen in the films. Something like that has never happened, and if that's the case, why wasn't the lightsaber calling to Luke Skywalker from Anakin Skywalker in A New Hope? What? There's no reason. There's no reason.
No, I don't need a reason. The script says so.
Now, I was generally fine with the First Order. However, I feel that it was less about Palpatine's thirst for power and control and more about
like
we're just
Empire.
evil space Nazis.
The Empire at least had Palpatine's thirst for power and control as like a primary backing motive.
And it had a reason and ways it got to the stage it was.
But it just seems like Kylo's like, we want to take over the universe so that I can be Darth Vader. That's like the only reason I can think of for the First Order being space Nazis.
We can only assume that the First Order is of course the remnants of the Empire, but it's more the fact of after the destruction of the second Death Star, we have absolutely zero information on how they even came about. Now I'm assuming that this information will be presented in the later films, but I think that the film itself should at least be able to stand up on its own two legs.
At least give you a couple of bullet points or something to explain a bit of the timeline. Because these guys just show up out of nowhere and it's just, oh, they're the bad guys, by the way. The way they're written in is these are bad guys. That's how they're written in.
Admittedly, it was like that in A New Hope. However, A New Hope did start out as episode 4, so we were able to assume that these things would be explained.
The backstory would be there.
But considering how little was explained in this film, it makes me worried about, is this going to be explained in later films? That's kind of my gripe with this.
Is there going to be a second prequel trilogy?
Oh god.
Imagine that. It's just the events between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens.
Specky Tangerine Woman, that really stood out hard because she was the only incredibly noticeably CGI thing in what was an incredibly nice set designed world.
Yeah.
So I really wish that she was an actual person.
Yeah, they could have made her a human and would it have changed her role in the slightest?
No, but she had to be this fucking weird ass looking thing that was just really unimmersed me from the film because of how incredibly obviously CGI she was.
She was one eye higher than a minion.
Yeah.
This is essentially what we're going for here.
Now, personally, I felt that the cinematography was a little off. I think it was very, very new. There's a lot of weird camera angles that weren't present with the other Star Wars. Again, this is something that didn't float with me very well, and I'm separating this from the other points. However, it did look very nice. I will agree that it was great, but it just felt a little off to me. But that's
I thought the cinematography was okay. I thought it didn't look like the scenes were shot well. I just don't think the script was well written. I don't think it was. I mean, you can't really act that well if the script isn't as good as it could be.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the acting overall was okay. However, I feel that Carrie Fisher's acting was fucking atrocious.
Oh, she should have been the wee fucking orange tangerine woman. She might as well have been. Anybody could have been Leia in this film.
Yeah.
It literally didn't matter. And the fucking May the Force. Fuck off, Leia.
That
fuck
last
off.
Film, the only thing that was Force related about that last line was her execution of it.
I was ready to leave. I was going to force myself out the fucking cinema.
When she said, "May the Force be with you," I swear to God, I half expected a McDonald's logo to just appear at the bottom left-hand corner.
I know.
Because it just felt so weird and out of place.
That'd be fantastic.
But yeah, I mean, so that is us, pretty much.
I mean, that's pretty much it, yeah. That's pretty much it, really. So now you can feel free to dislike the video, I guess, because we know that we're definitely a minority here. We know that we're in a minority when we say that we're not a huge fan of this film. We didn't think it was very good. We know that we're in that minority.
But we think it's important to discuss these things. Do you know what I mean?
We can criticise stuff that we enjoy in the same way that we can criticise stuff that we didn't enjoy.
Yeah.
Like, we are looking at the objectives, like the positives and the negatives. As we said, Kylo was a good character. The sound design and all that, and all the audio cues were really fucking well done, true to the originals. But we're going to criticise the fact that there's just glaring plot holes, like Terminator, the new Terminator, like level of plot holes.
Exactly,
He's my dad now. But you know what I mean? Like, we don't hate the film. we just don't think it was very good.
Yeah, and especially not deserving of an 8.8 on Internet Movie Database.
I don't know why it's rated so high.
95% Rotten Tomatoes was the critic score.
Well, of course it is, because they've all been fucking paid.
So I feel that that is blinded by nostalgia right there.
Yeah, because it wasn't really that great. Like people in our cinema started clapping at the end of it. If
Who claps at films?
Who are you applauding? Well done, projector. Well done. You played that magnificent. Fuck off.
Anyway, we're going to leave that there because that's pretty much everything. Anything else is just super niggly, but
yeah.
Hopefully, you know, you guys agree or whatever, and if not, just get a discussion going. If you're just
a reasonable discussion.
Yeah, exactly. So
a reasonable one.
We'll leave it there and
a Disney's discussion.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys.
Thanks,
later.
guys, and hopefully you haven't unsubbed because of this.
They probably.